The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. This channel has had quite an evolution behind itself since the 3 years that I'm running it, and it started off as a more classical self-improvement channel when I was still trying to find my voice. And then after the self-destructive beliefs tier list, I was more confident in my worldview and how I can assert myself in this space. And over time, I leaned more into the spiritual language, which I did feel more sincere, but then also started to feel limiting, because then a lot of spiritual identity comes into play, and a lot of people in spiritual communities aren't really that intellectual or interested in deep thought. And it's not just about intellectualism for me, it's more about honest engagement with ideas. And I found most communities are always very resistant to their counterpart. Spiritual communities are very resistant to scientists and materialism, and a lot of rationalist communities, which I always loved. But then these rationalist communities are often very cold and calculated and don't really vibe with the more mystical aspect of psychedelics and idealism and panpsychism, although there's a renaissance happening right now. But I want to go also closer again to the roots of just classical self-improvement and mix those three together, because true spirituality is really about classical self-improvement, because it's not just about the integration of your ego and your sense of self, but can you actually use your conscious awareness to make a conscious choice for your day-to-day life? Can you resist temptation? Can you resist the desire to fall into pleasure and addiction? Have you the ability to move your attention the way you want to? Or are you constantly stimulated and moved by your environment? And nowadays, society has structured itself so that you are being moved around by your environment and your attention is not yours. So I find that the practical aspect of actually living a life where you are autonomously, sovereignly creating your own life space, I find this really the crux of what all of this work is about. And it unifies the utilitarian, scientific, materialistic productivity mindset while also becoming aware of your sense of identity and not being so attached to any moment of experience, while also having aims towards future goals without clinging in your identity to need to fulfill whatever vision you have for the future. And I find that a lot of it comes down to humility. A lot of people who start to go into this self-improvement, productivity grind set, wanting to be somebody, like having a ton of money and therefore raising the social status, they kind of lose the fact that it will make you miserable if this is your main aim in life. And you can see this with a lot of these red pill or manosphere influencers, because they do not look happy at all. Like, they actually say that they're not happy. If you look at people like Andrew Tate now, you can see that he seems to be a shell of his former self. And he clearly states that he is unhappy with his life, full of nightmares every night and full of anxiety. And he admits this freely and even makes it into like a manly thing, that this is what manlyhood is supposed to be. And this is true for many other influencers from this sphere or this era. They are clearly not happy. And if you look into the more spiritual spaces, then you can see people just becoming crazy. A lot of idealist ideas are easily looked at as crazy. But I like to ground things in the actual experience of something. Like, if you, like, I, for example, don't believe in astral travel in somebody who is truly moving through this physical space-time and going through other places while still being in the body. But I'm open to the experience of somebody who is astral traveling and is expressing their own experience with it. The same way when I talk about my psychedelic experiences, they are so unbelievable that if somebody hasn't taken psychedelics before, I like still to be listened to and taken seriously. And the same I would do for any other person, even if they talk about some mystical experience they've had with Allah, for example. I do think that there's true value in taking people's mystical, exotic experiences seriously. And if you start to not be identified with any particular frame as like the only valid frame, then it becomes much easier to live life in an easy way. Like you start to just move through the motions of what your natural inclinations are without making it into a narrative of better or worse. And you can see that on this YouTube channel I've now uploaded every single day for, I think, the last 20 days or so. And it has been actually the first time in 3 years that I've been able to do this. And it has slowly evolved from, not being able to upload even just one video a week or one video a month. It was already so difficult because I was so preoccupied with how I'm going to be perceived, and it had to be perfect and everything needs to work right. And I had this, identity of somebody who needs to be productive and needs to push through and has to work 8 hours a day or stuff like this. And all of this is a hindrance. It is just fed from this productivity culture, but not how genuine good work is being done. Genuine good work is being done by feeling aligned with what you're doing and present with what you're doing, by having space in between it and feeling content while in it. If you have to grind all the time or force yourself to do something you don't really enjoy, then sooner or later you will get burnt out and your passion is going to cease. If you cannot keep the flame of your passion burning, then you're losing the actual most important fuel of what makes you, evolve as a human being. The flames of passion without attachment to outcome is the most important power that you can cultivate. And cultivate is the right word, because the true improvement that happens in your day-to-day life basis is something you cultivate. And the biggest mistake I see people doing, and I'm not like a self-improvement coach, I do ego architecture audits where I analyze people's identity and their ego and how this sense of identity is then causing more suffering and restriction and some delusion in their perception of reality and life. And it is never really related to productivity per se, but there is a clear overlap, because if you're addicted to pornography, for example, and you feel this huge amount of guilt towards it, well, then of course it is mixing with every area in your life, and especially with your spiritual identity. So then quitting this addiction, or any addiction for that matter, becomes part of the spiritual process. Because what is this identity that feels so composed to always do this thing instead of moving its attention otherwise? Meaning that there's an attachment and a craving towards a certain state. And by feeling this way, and by the way, the state can also be working, but by feeling this craving towards these states, you automatically create a sense of identity where you can only feel comfort and only feel happy when you're in this certain state. And this is what happens for most people, right? They gain the identity of somebody who is very entrepreneurially minded and even make a lot of money, and then they have all of the success. And it is also just temporary. And then something maybe humiliates them, like they have some sort of controversy and stuff. And now suddenly everything is being threatened. And can you still find peace there? If your peace is dependent on external circumstances, then no, then you're going to feel miserable. And you might, actually want to cease to exist and want to remove yourself from everything that you have, because suddenly the relationship has transformed into something miserable. So I think the true levels of high self-improvement, the true manosphere, is spirituality, combining it with a sincere understanding of scientific reality and physical truth. Like, I'm the new manosphere now, bitch. But I do really think that I don't even want to be, I don't even like the label manosphere at all. I take it back. Because it's not about manlyhood at all. The entire idea that this mindset of being more spiritual or being more productive or having a more holistic sense of self is somehow related to this like manly self-improvement culture, I actually should burn this entire association down to the ground. Because women are also having a ton of mental health crises. It's not better for either gender. There's just a cultural friction going on. And I think if it is truly well done, then it should probably be appealing to both genders, because both genders have an ego anyway. And I do think that societally, women are even stronger conditioned to have an ego, because they need to be so much more self-aware about how they present themselves and how they look and how they're being perceived. Like the social dynamic is almost more strongly entrenched, from what I can tell. So the real measurement of your own spiritual and personal evolution, say, is just how well can you live throughout your day without resisting what is happening, and how well can you move towards what your inner true desire is really moving you towards. And if you become blind to your true inner desire, if you start to be moved by stuff that is actually hurting you, if you fall into a loop of these just traps that keep hurting you, and you feel like you are thinking about yourself in a negative manner, like you're insulting yourself, or you have a negative view about the world, you have a negative view about existence as a whole, then this stuff will drag you down every single moment of your life. And you want to avoid that. And a lot of what I do is about showing people that what they think their view of existence is, or their view of life or culture is programmed. And it is, in a way, as real as any other program. Like if you are in the body of an intense narcissist, then you're going to view the world from this lens. And it might as well be reality for you then. This is important because it helps you to decouple yourself from your perception and stop being so identified with your perception. Because your perception isn't really the ultimate reality. It is just something that has been conditioned and programmed over, decades, most likely, of this self-feeding loop. The most important aspect is authenticity, really. It's to always be connected to your true desires and your true needs, and to be able to assert them and build a life where this is center stage. True peace is not having to put on a mask for others and not having to do things that you don't want to do. And there are a lot of the self-improvement stuff comes also in, because first of all, people need more money, and the economy isn't roses for most people. But on the other hand, even if you have a lot of money, if you cannot, I don't want to say control, but redirect your attention away from your spontaneous urges, then it doesn't matter how much money you have and how successful you are. If you want to take heroin, you're going to take heroin and ruin your life. So this ability to be aware of what is actually serving you and then following towards it or not following towards it is, really crucial in all facets of life. And it's what actually everybody struggles with. And I think that there is true significant change that happens when you realize these more mystical perceptions, like the fact that there is no self, that reality is impermanent, and that there is unsatisfactoriness in the nature of how we relate to consciousness itself. And all of these more spiritual practices lead you towards a place where it is much easier to not automatically follow your addictions or impulses. For me, right now, I find it immensely valuable to not be just completely abstinent. For example, weed is my personal drug of choice. Like, I love this drug so much, and it has served me a lot. But the more you take it, like on a daily basis, the more it just starts to hurt. Like the effect is worse. It's making me less creative. It is making me more complacent. But if I do it like once a week or once every 2 weeks, the numbers are a bit arbitrary, honestly. But the more you take space between indulging in some sort of pleasure, the better the pleasure even feels. and the same is true for gooning. If you enjoy sexuality, then that's awesome. But if you indulge in it every day out of boredom, you're destroying something that in its nature can be quite pleasurable. Also, the way you relate to a certain substance or, addictive behavior changes a lot. Like, pornography is like the main example, right? It's not, it's like we start to relate to the same pattern in the same way again and again. And by doing so, we kind of losing other forms of experiencing pleasure. So it's not about all or nothing. It is always about how can you build up tension and build up desire and build up the capacity to not react and to be able to wait before you act onto something. Be more conscious in how you act towards something. And if it happens unconsciously or as a reaction, then to not guilt yourself for it or shame yourself for it or think you should be otherwise, which is what a lot of classical self-improvement has done. It's always shame people or guilt trip them for not being good enough, which I think is the exact opposite of what you should be doing if you feel if you want to be free from these compulsions, because it's the narrative that this is negative that makes it so much more compelling to do, because you're creating internal resistance in your psychology. When it becomes forbidden or you become evil for doing it, it actually becomes way more attractive. And you don't really want to have this antagonistic relationship with these things anyway, because most likely they are giving you something positive or giving you some sort of pleasure or relief. And I would say that even work, like when I work on a video like this now, it is truly something I enjoy doing. And there's not ultimately a distinction between working or going for a run or sleeping or meditating or smoking anymore. All pleasurable activities and work-related activities start to kind of blend together because it becomes just a rhythm of life. Not that I enjoy everything equally or this isn't work. It definitely is a ton of work. But I relate to it very differently now because it becomes just part of the natural cycle of life. And if you are aware of your own cycles and that you can actually actively choose them and nobody is forcing you to do anything, then you truly become free.